My name is Tim Barley, and I love families. About the past 20 years, I've been working with moms and dads and teens, just trying to help them understand how to navigate through this amazing adventure we call the teenage years, and equip them with ideas and thoughts about how to talk to one another and how to tackle tough issues and how to celebrate life together.
So welcome. We are here today to talk about what teens wish their parents knew. And I hope this is going to be a fun session for you. This is primarily based on my interviewing teenagers and just asking them this question over the course of years. And it's interesting how familiar their answers sound over the years. But I want you to get just a glimpse of what's in your kids' minds. And many of you, this may not be any breakthrough kind of moment for you, but for some of you, it might be. So I've got a bunch of things, and we'll get through as many as we can today. First of all, teens want parents to know this. They want their parents to know this. Please don't assume that we're in the same world that you grew up in. Things have changed. And what they want you to realize is that sometimes as parents, we revert back to, well, I know what it was like when I was in grade school, or I know what it was like when I was in high school, or I know what it was like when I was in college. And that's great that you have that you can remember that far back. But the important thing to remember is that culture has changed dramatically. In many ways. Obviously, some things are the same, but there are a lot of pressures on kids today that weren't on kids 10, 20, 30 years ago. And it's important for us to keep that in mind, because when we start playing that game of, well, you need to handle this situation in exactly the same way that I handled the situation way back in the day, then we run into problems with our teens, because they basically have a disconnect moment with us, because they think my mom, my dad does not understand what we're walking through today. Just with the pressure, whether it's sexual, whether it has to do with substances, whether it has to do with bullying. Now, all those things existed when parents were kids too, but on a completely different level. A lot of that has to do with the internet and social media. That wasn't around when you were your kids' ages. And so just thinking through that and realizing, that's probably not the most effective way for me to talk to my child, as if, what they're going through is exactly the same as what it was like when I was going through. And that can be a real shutdown moment for kids. Second thing they want to know, life is stressful and we need help navigating through this, even though we may resist your help. There are more incidences of child and teen depression, suicide, self-harm than ever before in the history of our nation. The pressure on kids is so intense, and they're allowing themselves to be pressured, whether it's academically or athletically or socially. All kinds of pressures are coming at them in ways that you can't possibly understand if you compare it to what your childhood was like. And so what I hear from teens that they wish their parents knew is that I am genuinely stressed. It's not kiddie stress. It's real stress that is leading me to think about things and perhaps act out in ways that are unthinkable to many of us. Things like cutting themselves, things like contemplating suicide, things like just developing, real anxiety disorders and depression disorders, and all those kinds of things are very real. And so thinking about that, for your kids need time to relax. Kids need time to just take a break. And so they may not do that on their own. You may have to insist that happens. So just keeping a watchful eye on your children, but remembering that even if they resist it, that they still need your input, your resources to help them deal with the stress that they have in life. This is another message that teens want their parents to know. Please don't manipulate us. We see right through that. For example, asking questions with the answers in them. like, don't you think that Joe really is not doing the right thing? Okay? And so it's kind of this coercive way to get this answer out of your child. And again, they're not dumb. They understand that. So just thinking about even how you ask a question so that it's not done in any type of manipulative way. Because again, those are cues for your kids to shut down. If they feel like you're trying to control them or manipulate them in situations like that, instead of really asking for what they think about something, don't use a manipulative way to kind of come at that. Next item, let us take some risks. They're not all that bad. And I hear this from kids a lot. They feel like some parents are so paranoid that their child is going to get hurt or not have a positive experience that they remove the possibility for any risk whatsoever. And again, studies have shown that kids, are definitely enamored by this idea of risk taking. It's exciting, it's a rush for them, and they want to do it. So if there's a way for you to turn that into a positive, looking for them to maybe become involved in extreme sports activities, or go to amusement parks, where they're able to go on some fun rides, or just keeping your ears and your eyes open for ways that you and your children can enjoy fun, exhilarating experiences can be a very, very helpful tool for you to keep in mind. The comparison strategy stinks. Most teens hate being compared to others. Why can't you be more like your brother? Or when I was your age, I'd already done this. And for most teens, it sends a very negative message to us. They want to be assessed on just the basis of themselves, not in comparison to another person. They get that enough from tests in schools and other types of activities they have going on in life. So when you as parents do that, it can sometimes provide them with a sense of being devalued or insecurities or those kinds of things. I love it when you're sincerely proud of me. This is something that comes across with a lot of kids as well. It's one thing for you to give lip service to your child's accomplishments. It's another way for you to sincerely express the pleasure and the pride that you have in your child and what he or she has done. And that can happen in a variety of ways. If you happen to be someone that really doesn't do a good job with that verbally, because some of us don't, we just come across as insincere or cheesy or whatever you want to call it, then maybe it could be through writing a note or some other means. But you're going to have to work at figuring out how do I let my child sincerely know that I'm proud of their accomplishments. And that's very, very important to teens. So I hear that over and over. I hear this very, very commonly as well. I hate it when you fight. And I don't think, unfortunately, that all parents are aware of how damaging and detrimental it can be when your son or daughter hear or even see you and your spouse arguing, quarreling, whatever it may be. It sends a very damaging message, to them. It makes them question, is this my fault? Have I done this? Why do they do this? Why can't we just be, a happy family? Why can't we enjoy, one another? And so remember, disagreements are inevitable. But thinking through it and saying, you know what, when we do disagree, is there a way for us to handle this in a way that doesn't allow us to necessarily just explode in front of our kids? Can we discuss things in a more private manner, doing it more appropriately so our kids don't need to hear all the details of everything we're discussing anyway. It's not beneficial for them, and maybe it's not beneficial for the two of you either to just, let your emotions, fly off the handle, wherever, whenever, it may occur, but to realize also that your children are being affected by your behavior. Another statement I hear, trust me with some responsibilities other than chores. Chores are great, a great way to instill, just discipline and all those kinds of qualities in your children, but a lot of children say, a lot of teens say, I wish my parents would trust me to do something more substantial. Like giving them some type of responsibility. And again, it needs to be realistic. Like if you don't trust your child's driving, then don't ask them to go pick up their younger siblings, until they're at that place. But if you do trust your child's driving and you feel like they've had enough experience, that first time when you say, you know what, I want you to go pick up your younger brother from soccer practice today, and I'm not going to be able to go with you, that can be a huge, huge mile marker in the life of your child. So thinking about ways for you to be able to instill trust in your child by finding some responsibilities, some realistic responsibilities that you can dole out to them can be very significant. Another comment that we hear is this: watch your prescription meds. I know what they can do, and so do my friends. We're living in an era where prescription pill abuse, prescription meds abuse is rampant in our culture, and teenagers know about it. They're very aware of what prescription meds are. They're very aware where they can get them, and most commonly they can be taken right out of a family's medicine cabinet or a grandparents' medicine cabinet. Or I've had families tell me that they would go over to friends' homes and their children would be going to the bathroom throughout the visit, and they'd be going to different bathrooms in the house actually. And it wasn't until much later that they realized our kids were raiding the medicine cabinets because they can take prescription meds, they can either sell them or use them. And so your kids are aware of that, and so they want you to know, lock up your prescription meds. Be aware that this is a potential temptation for them as well as for their friends, and that's a great insight for you as parents to keep in mind. They want you to know that they need to be socially engaged. It is a rare teenager who doesn't really need to be socially engaged. And so keeping that in mind, if your child goes through a prolonged period of time where they're not socially engaged, you should probably look into that. Something's not right. Something's not normal. So figure out what that is. So again, even using that as a punishment, to withdraw social engagement for a prolonged period of time can have negative consequences in ways that you may not realize. So just remembering that need for social engagement is very strong among kids, and they want you to understand that and to keep that in mind. Now, you know as well as I do that the choices they make and who they are socially engaged with is a very important choice. And so you can talk to them about that and let them know, if you're making choices to spend time with people who are influencing you in negative ways, then yes, you're going to lose privileges of having the freedom to be with them. So you need to make wise choices about spending time with people that are encouraging you to be, a trustworthy, honorable, girl or guy. And so walking them through that and the choices that they're making about who they're spending time with is important. Another thing that they say is that we really do want to know what you think about stuff. And even when we don't act like it, we're paying attention. Very interesting. I remember when I was a teenager, one of my favorite things to do was to sit down with my dad and watch the news in the evening. Because my dad always had these very insightful observations to make about what was going on in the world. And I just hung on his every word. I just thought, what he had to say was so important and so valuable. Now, all of us don't have, insights, about the news. But remembering that our kids really do want to hear from us. They really want to know what we think about what's going on. What do we think about, what's happening politically? What do we think about what's happening economically? What do we think about what's happening socially? All those kinds of things. And to be aware of that. And even when they seem disinterested and you get the rolled eyes or the, stiff postures or the kind of distant, sitting and all that kind of thing, they know what what you're saying. They're aware of it. And so don't think that they're never listening, that they're never aware of what's going on. They are, and they really are curious about what you have to say about a lot of things. So keep that in mind. And the last thing that kids want parents to know is that they love you. A lot of kids tell me that they feel the older they get, sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes they're still trying to figure out, how to say it. It was easier when they were 4, than it is when they're 14, and going into their teenage years. But every time I say, do you love your parents? The vast majority of them unashamedly say, absolutely, we love mom, we love dad. And we talk about the importance of communicating that, to them. And so they're still trying to figure out, and it'll change from year to year probably, maybe from month to month, if not more, but how to communicate that in a way that feels right to them. Whether it's saying it, whether it's communicating it non-verbally, whether it's writing a note, whether it's, doing something, kind for you, but they did want you to know that they love you. So those are just a few things that I hear from students and have heard from students over the years about things that they wish that parents know that I think might be helpful for you to keep in mind as you're interacting and communicating with your kids.